Harper Audio presents The Girl in the Glass by James Hayman, performed by Stephen Mendel. Chapter 1. Whitby Island, Maine, June 1904. Aimée wasn't dead, not unless this was what death felt like. An odd floating in and out of consciousness without light, without pain, without any sense of time or place. All she could remember was the sensation of falling, and then a kind of explosion. She'd always been terrified of heights and often dreamt of falling, but never as vividly as this. Slowly, by infinitesimal degrees, Aimée Marie Garnier Whitby became aware of a breeze blowing against the left side of her body, the sound of waves pounding against rock, the scraping of pebbles as retreating waves drew them back into the sea. She shivered as a cold spray struck her skin, bare skin lying on cold, rough stone. Odd. She didn't know why she wouldn't be dressed, but at least she wasn't dead, not unless her immortal soul had descended into a hell that smelled, sounded, and felt like a cold northern sea. She heard a squawking of birds close by. Forcing reluctant eyelids open, she was blinded by the sudden glare of a sun almost directly overhead. She quickly closed them, waited a few seconds, and then tried again, opening her lids more slowly this time. When her eyes had, at last, adjusted to the light, what she saw filled her with dread. A dozen crows, maybe more, circling above, all large, loud, and very black, all focused on this wounded thing that lay beneath them. A murder of crows, that's what the English called them. A parliament of owls, an exaltation of larks, a murder of crows, birds as black as night, harvesters of death. Lying alone on this cold, flat rock, Aimée wondered if perhaps she really had died and her soul had descended to hell, a hell filled not with the fires of damnation that the village priest back home in Provence frightened her with as a child, but a hell, nevertheless, to which a vengeful God had condemned her. But for what was she being punished? The sin of adultery? The sin of loving another man more than she loved her husband? All the times she and her lover had been together, it had never felt like sin. Moreover, if adultery was a sin worthy of damnation, why wasn't Edward lying here beside her? She had had only one lover, who was indeed someone she loved. Edward, in their 10 years of marriage, had had dozens, many hired for a single night in the high-class bordellos of Boston or New York. Aimée watched the winged black shapes circle above her. Steeling herself to fight back, she shouted at the birds to get away, managed to swing a fisted arm, striking one who dared fly too close. The bird and its murderous comrades retreated to higher altitudes, some circling, others watching from small outcroppings on the wall of rock rising above her. She lay her head back down against the rock, her eyes moving past the birds, examining the wall itself. Suddenly, she knew exactly where she was. She'd never seen it from this angle, but knew without a doubt that she was lying at the bottom of the 60-foot metamorphic cliff that formed a nearly sheer wall on the seaward side of Whitby Island. She had no memory of coming to the island. Had she come alone, or had someone been with her? Aimée often sailed out in the summer to paint, sometimes alone, sometimes not. If Mark, or perhaps Edward, had come this time, surely there was a chance, even a likelihood of rescue. Sooner or later he would miss her and come looking. The island wasn't big, only 33 acres of rock and piney woods rising from the ocean 3 miles out from the city of Portland. Aimée shivered. Soon the sun would be going behind the cliff and she would get even colder. Clutching her arms around herself for warmth, she wondered if crawling closer to the cliff would be a...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?